What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today I felt like talking about the new UQ that we just received, Mining Rig Defense Retem. I want to talk about some of the good stuff that I saw from it, some of the bad stuff, and give you my overall final impressions about this new urgent quest and where it sits within our game. So I first want to start with some of the good things about this new UQ. When we compare it to the Mining Rig Defense Alio, there are some stark differences that does make this UQ much better than the previous one. The first thing that I noticed that I really liked was the location of the mining bases. They weren't at the very end of the map, they were kind of somewhat in the middle, which made it so that monsters could corral around these bases, as well as some of those spawn locations would actually be coming from the side on some of these mining bases, and it made for a more varying and surprising gameplay when you didn't exactly know where all of these monsters were spawning. The other thing I really liked about MRD Retem was the verticality of it. Sometimes you actually had to jump on top of some cliffs to get some monsters. You would have to drop down to get other ones since you were out of their range. And the other thing I really liked was because there was so much verticality, you couldn't necessarily look over at the other mining rig and see if it was in danger. This made me personally use the minimap a lot more than I would with the Alio version, just because I couldn't rely on looking over and seeing if there was monsters there. And this next one I think might come off as a surprise, but I actually really liked the Equalizer brancals. I think this was a great introduction to Mining Rig simply because it requires a bunch of teamwork from the players that are protecting one mining rig. I, on all my runs, would take the purple tower, so we always had an Equalizer brancle show up, and it really reinforced me and that other player deciding on who is going to grab the brancle and take it away from the other monsters so that the other person could then handle all the rest of the monsters. Now, you don't have to do it this way every time to take down these waves, but it is obviously the most efficient way of taking down these monsters at these mining bases. But that requires a lot of coordination and teamwork. And I also like the spawn of each wave being a bit more erratic. What I mean by this is I noticed a lot of these waves having spawns sometimes a minute after that wave actually started, and it really caused a lot of players to be caught off guard because you thought your wave was completely done, you'd go help others, and then more things spawn on your side of the mining base. And I actually found that very refreshing. I also really liked that there was different types of monsters that would spawn. For example, I think it's wave 5. At the very end of this wave, you have 5 or 6 of those towers, those beam towers spawn up, and it made for a really interesting encounter, knowing that we have a specific amount of time before these things start attacking. We have to go take these out, and depending on where you are within that wave, that might not be available because you have so many other issues. Now, let me get to some of the bad things that I observed. First things first, there isn't nothing inherently new to the Mining Rig Defense. It is essentially the same thing. You are fighting waves of monsters. The aggro system is still the same. As long as you're attacking a lot of them, they will chase you. That is still the same strategy in this Mining Rig Defense. Collecting points is the same. The turret system is the same. Most of it is very similar. So if you're used to Mining Rig Defense Alio, you're using pretty much the same strategies here to accomplish the same goal of completing. Additionally, AoE is still king here since aggro is the only thing that matters. So going Ranger, going Force, going these huge ranged AoE options is always going to be the best bet. The other real big issue with this Retem Mining Rig Defense is that there is no new loot, at least from what I've noticed and others have. This basically makes the Retem Mining Rig Defense have very little value to you as a player. With this release being so close to Kavaris, you're not making that much Meseta running these UQs because these capsules that you are going to loot are worth very little. On top of that, there is no unique rare that drops from this UQ. What I'm talking about here is like a unique motion or a unique camo that some of the other content that we do have in the game has, much like Trinitas, much like the Retem purples, like the seasonal UQs. They all had some sort of unique, really rare item that you could get from them if you're lucky. At least I haven't observed that, or I haven't seen any information on that. So I'm going to go ahead and just say, no, there's probably nothing like that in this UQ. And the biggest complaint that I have with this UQ is that there is no new boss on wave 6. It's actually the same Distraga that we have from Mining Rig Defense Alio, and this is a huge bummer. One of the monsters that we saw in Trinitas was Grand Miser, and I thought that was an incredible candidate to put into the Mining Rig Defense Retem, but we did not get that. We got the same old Distraga. So my overall impression, I do think there was some great improvements when compared to the Alio version of Mining Rig Defense, but I'm ultimately left with one final question. Why are we getting this UQ at the end of Retem? This UQ doesn't feel like there was anything unique that required it to be delayed all the way back until May. This really feels like this should have been something that was released within the first or second month of Retem. And the reason why I believe that is if you played Ranger or you followed the market, you know how expensive Ragras 3 capsules were. The reason why they were so expensive was there was no way to farm Ragras 3 capsules in the Retem region. If you compared it to the Renist and Dust Souls, which are the tech and melee versions of that Boss Soul capsule, you had UQs that you could farm, and in some cases you had veterans you could farm. For the case of the ranged Boss Soul capsules that had 2.5% potency, the only places to find Ragras was in Mining Rig Defense Alio and the rank 1 purple trigger at that time. This made it so that if you were a ranged class, if you were trying to get this capsule, they were very difficult to go get because you had to rely on a UQ from the previous region, which at that time had 3 UQs that could pop up, so it was even more rare than say Rennis Retem. And the only other option you had was to spend Alio purple triggers to go do purple trigger runs for a chance to drop one, which meant you were spending money to try to get one. This put ranged builds in a really weird position for a long time when Retem started. And so here I am seeing Mining Rig Defense come out, and it's a Distraga boss at the end, which drops Ragras 3 capsules. And so once again, I ask, why did we get this so late? It feels like this should have been in the game month 1 or month 2, but was heavily delayed until May for some reason. And it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Retem really feels like a very empty update when you take a step back and look at it now that we've had 6 months within this region. There was a lot of stuff that was delayed, and there really wasn't any reasons of why it was delayed. And when they were finally released, they don't feel like they were completely fleshed out or completed. So it's honestly a real shame that it is so late into Retem that we are getting this content. I really feel like this would have been a great way to spice up the UQs, having that third one pretty early into Retem. I really liked Mining Ring Defense when it first came out. It was definitely nice not having to do a boss killing UQ, and I kind of liked being able to use my Force class and excel with it, and that wouldn't have changed if Mining Rig Defense Retem was released back when Retem actually came out. So let me know in the comments down below, how do you feel about MRD Retem? We are getting so darn close to Kavaris. I can't hardly wait for that region to be released so we can all enjoy everything that is new in New Genesis. So until next time, guys, I will see you all real soon.